Welcome back, everyone, to Yogomi Movies. I'm Frank, and I'm a bit of a movie nerd. I wouldn't call myself a movie buff. I just really love movies. So I decided to create this offshoot channel of Yogomi to talk just about movies. And today, I'm going to talk about a pretty heavyweight contender for my favorite movie of all time. Now, I do have a favorite movie of all time, and I'm gonna make a video about that movie. But for now, we're gonna talk about a movie that I saw roughly around 86 or 87. I didn't see it right when it came out, but it was a movie that I ended up renting and falling in love with, like, immediately. And that movie is Tampopo. Tampopo was a Japanese comedy film that came out in 1985, and it was directed by Juzo Itami. It's a unique and quirky exploration into the world of ramen, like the Japanese noodles. It's often referred to as a ramen western due to its playful homage to the Western genre. Don't get me wrong, it's not a Western, but it's very focused on the culinary culture of Japan. Now, the film has a pretty wide cast. There's a lot of people and a lot of characters, but the main characters are played by the great Ken Watanabe, who stars as Gun, and Nobuko Miyamoto, who stars as our titular character, Tampopo. Now, I didn't see this movie right when it came out. I think I rented it later on. I want to say roughly 86 or 87, probably a year or so after the movie was actually released in Japan. It was on the wall at some rental place in my hometown, and I saw it, and I was already a fan of Japanese culture, like when it came to anime. I'm a big fan of Akira Kurosawa. I love samurai movies, but this was something different, and I didn't know what it was, but I was just drawn to it. Now, as always, with all of my movies, I don't do any spoilers, but I will talk about the things that I find very appealing and what makes me like this movie so much. One of the things about this movie is that it's known for its genre-bending approach. While the film primarily centers around the story of a woman named Tampopo who really wants to create the best bowl of ramen. She's just really, really wanting to learn how to make the perfect bowl of noodles. But the film also includes other vignettes and subplots which also touch on various aspects of food and eating. And the thing about this is I didn't really catch that when I first watched it. I just enjoyed the movie for what it was, and I didn't catch on until a little bit later, like, oh, this is really about the culture of Japanese food. I don't want to give too many details about the little cutaways and vignettes and little side stories that are in this film, because I think they're just such really fun surprises and just like neat little additions to the film that they jump away from the story, but it's still connected in some way. As I mentioned earlier, it's been dubbed a ramen western, and one of my favorite genres of film is spaghetti western. But this isn't really quite the same as far as I'm concerned. When I watch it, I don't really think or get the feel of a spaghetti western, but I do get where they're coming from. This film does sort of incorporate elements of Western films, but remember, this takes place in the 80s. The film is shot in the 80s, and it takes place in the 80s. It's not a period piece. Well, I guess it is, but at the time that it came out, it was the 80s. And as you watch it, you can see that the setting is definitely the mid-80s. But it does create this unique blend of cultural influences. Even the opening scene has this sort of particular homage that it plays to like a classic Western of like the stranger riding into town, only this time it's a truck driver, and it's two guys. It's Ken Watanabe's character and his buddy played by Koji Yakusho. And as you watch the film, you'll see this Western motif kind of like repeated and recurrent, because it's as if the characters are pursuing their culinary passions with like a sense of adventure and determination. Now, the main character, Tampopo, played by Nobuko Miyamoto, is on this quest to become a highly skilled ramen chef. And she knows that if she gets better at this will be very beneficial to her own ramen shop that she currently owns. But it's not doing very well. She even has a few ragtag characters that you'll see in the film that try to drive the point home that maybe a ramen shop is not the best investment for her. As you watch, you see that her journey parallels the Western trope of like the lone hero seeking the mastery in their craft or their chosen field. And as I mentioned before, The story is woven with various food-related vignettes that both like entertain, but they also comment on the relationship between food and culture in Japan. Now, the film is considered a comedy, but beyond the comedic and entertaining aspects, Tampopo, it just offers like this social commentary on Japanese society, food culture, and human relationships. And it transcends societal boundaries and offers that window into the human experience. Now, the film Tampopo is often credited with helping popularize the trend of food themes and film and television, and this whole creative storytelling approach and unique exploration of culinary culture has inspired like a whole wave of documentaries, movies, all centered around food and cooking. One of the things I found out later in life, and I thought it was really funny, was in Japanese cuisine, it's considered polite and a sign of enjoyment if you slurp your noodles audibly. And I can't count how many times growing up that, I was told as a child to eat quieter or mainly, don't slurp your food or things like that. But the thing about this movie is that it emphasizes the cultural norm and actually playfully encourages the audience to engage and embrace the experience of eating and appreciating food through both visual and auditory cues. Several of the scenes of the film have become like quite iconic. There's a scene of the ramen master where there's a character who imparts wisdom about the proper way to eat ramen, and even the sensual food-focused scenes that explore the tactile and sensory aspects of eating. And just a disclaimer, this movie is very fun to watch. It's a comedy, but there are some scenes that I don't think that would be appropriate for a young audience. It's not full of these scenes, but I think there are some scenes that would definitely be censored in some areas. However, it's done so tastefully and so artfully that I don't think it is gratuitous. Tampopo was actually very well received when it came out by both audiences and critics. And not just in Japan, this film was internationally adored. I think with its unique blend of humor, cultural commentary, and culinary exploration, it really contributed to its lasting popularity. Overall, I think Tampopo is just a whimsical and very just creative film that uses like the art of cooking and eating as a vehicle to explore themes of human interaction, human connection, cultural traditions, and the pursuit of mastery. It's a very, very playful approach to storytelling, and it is one of my favorite movies of all time. Definitely in the top 10. The really interesting thing about this movie is that I grew up definitely having ramen, but I'd never really had real Japanese cuisine. I wouldn't have real Japanese cuisine until I was in my late 20s when I had sushi for the first time. I was maybe 27, 28, and it changed my life. And I remember going back and watching this movie and thinking totally different about ramen and noodles and sushi and just eating all together. Japanese cuisine is actually one of my favorite types of foods. So if you haven't seen this movie, I highly suggest it. It's called Tampopo, came out in 1985. It's a great, just interesting, stylish movie about Japanese food, culinary culture, and the human experience. And remember, there are little vignettes and little side stories that kind of break away from the main story, but it all stays connected. It's so worth watching. So that's it for this video. I will be back very soon with another video about another movie. Tampopo, 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 popo, popo, tampopo, 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 popo, popo. All right.